All right, it's Sunday, October 28th. We're back at the Lucky Chances property here. It's 9:30 in the morning. We're here to play a tournament today. It's a 375 buy-in. It's their kind of last Sunday of the month tournament where it's usually a 20K or 40K guarantee first place. So today is the 20K guarantee. We're going to start with 17,000 in chips. Blinds will be 100-100 with a big blind ante to start. They're going to be 20-minute levels, so a pretty fast-paced structure to start for the first 6 levels. Then after the first 2 hours, we'll have a break, and then the levels will then jump to 30-minute levels. So we're going to see if we can run it up at this tournament, and I'll check back with you shortly. All right, we're at our first break here. A few hands to share with you. We're playing blinds now of 100-200 with a 200 big blind ante. There's an early position limp. I'm in the cutoff with ace queen of spades, and I make it 800 to go. The button makes the call, and the limper makes the call. So we go 3 ways to a flop of queen queen 10 rainbow. Limper checks. Continuation bet for 1/3 pot for about 1200. Only the button makes the call. So we go heads up to a turn of a deuce of clubs, which brings in the backdoor flush draw. I go ahead and bet again. This time I bet 2,500. I've got about 6,500 or so behind, and the button now decides to make a raise to 5,200. The both of us have about the same stack size. He covers me by, I think, a couple thousand. And I don't want to just go ahead and jam it here. I think he definitely has some bluffs in his range here. He can have king jack, jack 9, and definitely some club draws. And the only real value hands he has are probably a king queen potentially, although I block that hand because I have a queen in my hand, and pocket 10s. And there's only several combos of pocket 10s there. So I go ahead and just make the call to kind of keep his range wide in case he is bluffing. And so the river brings over a 6 of diamonds. And this time I decided to check it again to try to induce, and that's what he does. He jams it all in he puts me all in for about 6,500. I make the quick call, and he turns over jack 9 of spades for the missed open-ended straight draw. So we take down a roughly 30K pot there. All right, so this next hand here, we're playing 200-300 with a 300 big blind ante. There's a few limpers, and it folds, and then it gets to me on the button, and I have ace of clubs, queen of hearts, and I go ahead and make it 2,100. We get 3 callers, so we go 4 ways to a flop of ace of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, 5 of hearts. It goes check check, and then one of the players decides to lead for 4,100 with about 5K back, and I decide just to make the call here, and the other 2 players fold. The turn brings a 5 of diamonds, so the front door flush gets there, and the player then jams it all in for his remaining 5K. Because I don't have any diamonds in my hand, and I have an ace, I feel like a large percentage of the time I'm way behind here. He probably hasn't made hand here in terms of a flush or 2 pairs, potentially some sets here. So despite the good price that I'm getting here, I decided to just lay it down, and so he takes the pot down there. All right, this next hand we're playing 200-400 with a 400 big blind ante. There's an early limper. The small blind completes, and I'm in the big blind with king of hearts, jack of diamonds, and I just go ahead and check my option. So we go 3 ways to a flop of king of spades, queen of clubs, 7 of spades. The small blind leads for 1,500, about a pot-sized bet, and only I make the call. The turn brings an offsuit 8. And the player doesn't stop betting. He goes ahead and makes it 2,500 this time. And again, I just make the call. The river brings an offsuit 5. And this time he leads for 4,000. And I think for a little bit, I don't see too much value in raising here in any part of the hand, to be honest, because he takes the lead throughout. And so I go ahead and just make the call. And sure enough, he shows us queen 5. So he flopped middle pair, and then he rivers 2 pair. And then he takes the hand down. So I think if we fade the 5 there on the river, I think he's still going to be betting a percentage of time, and you know, we would have taken the hand down, but not to be the case on this one. He rivers the 2-pair on us there. So, all right, last interesting hand to share here. I'm in early position with pocket 7s. We're now playing 200-400 again with the 400 big blind ante. So I go ahead and make it 1100. The player to my immediate left makes the call, the button makes the call, and the small blind makes the call. So we go 4 ways to a flop of a decent flop here. 6, 8, 9 rainbow. So we've got middle pair with a open-ended straight draw. It checks to me, and I make it 1300, kind of a down continuation bet. The player to my immediate left then raises to 3600, and the button cold calls. And then it gets back to me, and I have about another, I want to say 17K or so. And so I go ahead and just make the call, having some good equity there. And the turn brings an 8, and this time it checks around. And then the river brings a king of diamonds, and once again it checks around. So I go ahead and show my 7s, and they're good. The player to my left announces that he had ace-7. The button doesn't show, but based on the board, the only hand that makes sense that he could have there is jack-10. So we go ahead and win this. We're going to be heading back now to blinds of 400, 800 with the 800 big blind ante. And our stacks dwindled quite a bit. We've only got about 10K, so about 12 big blinds when we head back. So we'll see if we can run it up from there. And all right, so last hand, unfortunately, to report. Our stacks dwindled quite a bit. We're playing 400, 800 with the 800 big blind ante. I've got about 7,300 left, so just short of 10 big blinds. And I'm first to act with 10 of spades, jack of clubs. Given that I'm going to be in the big blind next, I'd rather kind of just get it in here with some decent holdings. And so that's what I do. I jam it all in, and it folds all the way to the big blind, and only the big blind makes the call. He tables pocket 3s, and the flop comes queen 9-5. So we flop an open-ended straight draw. The turn brings a 3. So now he makes a set, and then the river brings on another queen. So he makes a full house. We don't get there with our draws. And that concludes it for our tournament. Good luck to the remaining players. Pretty good turnout today. Drew over 370 players. So should be a pretty good first place prize. Definitely exceeding that 20K first place. From here, we're going to go put in a couple hours at the cash games and see if we can run it up there. So let's go. All right, it's Thursday, November 8th. It's about a week and a half since the tournament cash game day at Lucky Chances. It took me a few days to kind of take some time to rest a little bit. We did put in a pretty long session of cash games that day, and so it was pretty difficult to recap hands, and so we're going to try to do that tonight. Now that we've had some rest, some time to recap. But first and foremost, we're here at the Hockey Haven bar here. So this is a neighborhood bar that I've been coming to for a few years now. And the one thing that really makes this place special is on Monday nights during the football season, they actually offer a full steak dinner. And that comes with steak, potatoes, and a salad. And that runs for $25. And so it only goes on Monday nights during the NFL season. So I'll definitely put a link in the description box below to make sure you know where to check this out. And only a few more weeks of football, maybe another 7 or so weeks, so definitely come check it out if you have time. So a few more things to touch on before we jump into the hands. First and foremost, they pour a really good Guinness here, so definitely try and have that if that's your beer of choice. They also have a jukebox here and some pool tables, or a pool table. And yeah, they've got like a fully loaded bar with you know, all sorts of beer that you can want to have. I'm having my favorite drink of choice, which is a Moscow Mule. As you can probably hear from my voice, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I apologize. A bit muffled. I figure what better way to get over a cold than to have an adult beverage. So that's what we're doing here tonight. And so we're going to jump into a few hands here. All right, so after the 375 tournament, we did hop into those cash games at Lucky Chances. And there were essentially 3 hands that defined the evening or the session. We're playing 3-5-10. So the table had agreed to a mandatory straddle. And so I'm under the gun and I open up with pocket 4s to $35. It's a little bit loose, generally speaking, to open up with pocket 4s from that position. But given the game flow dynamics, it felt like it made sense at the time. So that's what I went ahead and did. The player to my immediate left then makes it $100 to go. And it folds back to me, and he's got about $400 behind. And so I figured I'm getting a decent price to, you know, play a little bit post-flop here and potentially flop a set if possible and navigate the hand from there. So that's what I go ahead and do, and I make the call. So we go heads up to a flop of 6-4 deuce rainbow. And so we flop middle set here. I go ahead and check it to him, and he just jams it all in for the $400 that he has. And we, of course, make the snap call. And the turn brings a jack of hearts, and the river brings a 9, I think, of clubs or diamonds. And he goes ahead and turns over pocket 9s. So he rivers a set there, definitely beats our sets, unfortunately. And so we got it in really good there, but he goes ahead and makes a better hand on the river, and he scoops a $1,000 pot there. All right, next hand is share. We're still playing 3-5-10 here. There's an early position raise to 20. The player to his immediate left, who's been running pretty well in the game, 3-bets it to 60, and then it folds to us in the small blind, and we have pocket kings. And so we go ahead and put in the 4-bet. We make it $200 to go. We started the hand with about 850 or 900, so we're the effective stack here. The under the gun player makes the fold, and the other player ends up making the call. He's got about 4 or 5K behind, so he's been running pretty well, as I had mentioned. So we go heads up to a flop of 3-6-10 rainbow. I go ahead and make a continuation bet of 160. A pretty standard down bet here. I'd be betting pretty much all of my range in this spot as the initial 4-betting aggressor. And so he goes ahead and makes the call, as I would also expect him to do, with a pretty wide range here. And so we go to a turn of an 8 of diamonds, and this time is a little bit interesting. The board does change a little bit. I think it brings in some pair straight draw type hands now that he could potentially have, and you know, he can still have hands like ace 10 and jacks. And so rather than check it and put myself in a weird position, because I'm probably never folding this hand anyway, I just go ahead and jam it all in for the 500 remaining in my stack, and he makes the snap call. The river then brings another 6, and we table our hands, and he shows us 7-9 of diamonds. So he makes the gut shot straight on the turn. So he makes his hand there. One interesting thing I would mention is that I kind of like his play, because when he makes his hand, it's really hard for me to put him on that kind of hand. And he definitely has the implied odds to kind of get my entire stack, which is essentially what happened. So on kind of like a surface level, it kind of looks maybe like a lucky card. I think in some ways you kind of look at it that way for him, but he definitely knew what he was doing in terms of having implied odds there to make his hand and essentially get my entire stack. And that's what happened, unfortunately, for us in this hand. So we go ahead and lose about an $1,800 pot here. All right, so last interesting hand to share in the session. We're going back to playing just 3-5 now. The straddle is off. There's a few late position limps, and I go ahead and limp as well on the button with queen 7 of hearts. Typically not a play I would make, and I don't recommend this play, but that's what we go ahead and do. And the big blind goes ahead and makes it 30 to go, and all 3 of us make the call. So we go 4 ways to a flop of 3 of hearts, 4 diamonds, 6 of spades, and the big blind goes ahead and leads for 50, and all 3 of us then make the call. So we then go ahead to a turn of a queen. And this time the big blind thinks for a little bit, and he leads again for 225. And the other two players fold, and now it's on us with a little bit of a decision. So we were obviously calling with some backdoor equities with Queen 7 of Hearts on the flop there. We were hoping to maybe make a straight, obviously, if the 5 had come, or turn some backdoor hearts. That didn't happen on the turn. Instead, we make a pair of queens. So now our hand is decently strong and value heavy, in my opinion. The big blind has showed a bit of a propensity to kind of be pretty loose and aggressive in certain spots, so we can't exactly just put him on a hand here. So we go ahead and just make the call and see what develops on the river. And the river comes a 9 of clubs. And so he tanks again for a little bit, and he goes ahead and jams us all in for about 550. And so I thought about it for a little bit, and again, this player type is pretty loose and aggressive, and so it's really, really difficult to put him on some holdings just because his range is so wide. And so what I end up doing is making the call, and he turns over pocket aces. So we go ahead and lose that one too. I would definitely chalk this one up to mostly play bad. I don't think you should find yourself in a hand too often with a hand like Queen 7 of Hearts, because it's really difficult to make a nutted hand for one, even if you are playing in position. And so it was super evident here by us essentially playing every street incorrectly from pre-flop to river. So lesson learned there. I think some of the beats probably took its toll early on, and probably showed up a little bit in this hand. So he played that hand pretty well, and we butchered this hand. So I think we deserve to lose this one, but yeah, that's kind of how things ended in terms of those three hands. All right, so that wraps up our session. We go ahead and lose 375 in the tournament, and we lose an additional 1625 in the cash games. So a total of minus $2,000 that day. Definitely hitting a little bit of a downswing recently, but we're going to continue to battle through it. These things happen in poker, and so you just got to ride the course. For every peak, there's going to be some valleys, so you just got to manage those when they happen and just stay focused both on and off the tables. And so yeah, as far as kind of what we're going to be doing in November, there's definitely some really good tournament series going on. There's going to be a couple of really good tournaments to play at Lucky Chances, so I'm going to try to go out for those in the coming weeks. And there's also a nice tournament series at Thunder Valley in Lincoln, California, which is just a little bit away from Sacramento, California. So we'll definitely try to bring the vlog there as well. No guarantees, obviously, depending on how the next couple weeks go. Maybe the cash games are good here, so we might just stay local. All right, so that puts a wrap to this vlog. Thanks so much for watching. All the support and comments and subscriptions has been great. So we're going to continue to try to get better and hopefully run it up on the next vlog. Just a quick note about the next vlog, vlog number 5. We make a semi-deep run in a tournament, so I hope you tune into that one.